Hey guys, today I'm going to walk through another warts and all video, so no editing. So sorry if there's any little mistakes or waffles along the way, but as I'm doing now. Anyway, so what I want to show you is where I've come to with creating reusable blocks of elements. In this case, I've created a basic card. All of these are exactly the same card. The differences in these first row up the top here, I'm using an nth-child selector to override a couple of variables. So every second or every even item has a different heading and different footer colors. In the second row here, I've got a modifier. So I've created a card modifier to tell it that this one's my primary colors, and another modifier to say this is my secondary colors. Another modifier here to say I want everything to align to the right, and then a modifier here where I'm saying I want everything compact. So it just reduces all of the spacing or padding around these edges here. So that's what I've built. I'm not going to build exactly the same thing, so I'm going to completely start from scratch and show you how I do it. And I can't remember exactly how I did it as I go, but that's okay because we're going to end up with something that we can change anyway. Now, if I look at the first one, before we get rid of all this, and have a look at what I've got here. So I've got a BEM structure here where I've got a card, so I called it a service card. And on that service card, I've got some variables that I've defined. And I'm going to show you why we do this and why that's the best way to build reusable content. It takes a little bit longer to create, but once you've created them, super flexible, super easy to remember how to do things. And then we've got some BEM elements under there. So a header with an icon and a heading. We've got a body with just a copy, which I think is just a rich text box. Is it a basic text box? We've got a footer and we've got a button inside the footer. And that's pretty much all we have in this block here. And again, these are all basically duplicates of that with some slight modifiers on them. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back to the editor in here, and I'm going to actually work out. I'm going to use my WP reset, so I go right back to the beginning. So I've got a base site here that I'm using local by Flywheel for dev. And what I do is once I've got everything to a point where it's my starting point for dev, create a snapshot. When I do things, I restore my snapshot and I go back to having a vanilla setup with, if I go into my pages here, for example, now, sorry, I forgot when you reset with WP reset, resets sometimes it'll actually ask you to log in again, sometimes it doesn't, but here we go. So we go into our edit with bricks on my test page here. We'll find I've just got a single section with a container. This is my base starting point. If I click on that container, I've got very little in my utilities. So I've gone back to virtually nothing. I'm going to go through a little bit of this. I've got some BB utilities here, which I'm going to explain in another video why I've called it BB. It's not Bricks Builder, but I'll come back to that. So here's some utilities I use. Here's some utilities that you'll find in automatic CSS. I've only used the button utilities, clickable parent and focus utilities. That's the only ones that we'll find in here. Okay, so I'm back to scratch. Now, I'm going to come back to my plugins I'm currently using. So this is pretty straightforward. I've got Advanced Thema, which I'm going to show you some super cool productivity features that Advanced Thema has. I've got my own little framework, which I thought about. This is just a tiny little plugin to bring in some variables and colors of the bricks. And that's because with this, I'm not using automatic CSS, which I'll explain shortly as well. Metabox, obviously, WP Reset, and WP Codebox. That's all I have on this test site at the moment. Now, I mentioned my Bricks Bits framework. So what I've got here is a WP Codebox where I've got to rename that to Bricks Bits. And I've got some SAS variables here and some colors, and from here down it generates a framework for me. And that framework is a very slim framework. It's pretty much, there's a couple of utility classes, but it's only generally CSS variables, and I've used the same names for those variables, so it's not exactly the same settings, but it's the same names as what you'd find in automatic themer. I use this for dev. I use this for really basic stuff. I still deploy automatic CSS on sites that I'm building for clients. I think there's a lot more to it than there is to this, but this is a good starting point for me. And I don't have to go through and keep adding and removing sites from the automatic CSS dashboard, and have a little bit more control over that. Now, one thing I do note from my, I'm going to reset this in my settings. I want my space men to start from 5 pixels, which I'll have to update my defaults for. So it's going to save that. All right, so I'm ready to go. I've got my framework. I've got my bricks reset to pretty much nothing. Now I can go back to my pages, all pages, go to my test page. Again, we're empty, so there's nothing there. So in there, I'm going to create a block. I'm going to call this my card grid. And inside that card grid, I'm going to create an item. And I'm going to right click. This is the AT feature, or advanced theme. I'll call it AT from now on. I'm going to right click on card grid, go to my class converter. There's my block. There's my element. So BEM is the double underscore, gives you your element. Without the double underscore, it's a block unless it has 2 dashes, which makes it a modifier. So block, element, modifier. Simple as that. Create class. Done. And now you can see on the left hand side here, I've got my card grid and I've got my card grid item. Okay, now I'm going to turn this in to be semantically correct. It's going to be a list. I'm going to make that a UL, and I make this an LI. Right, when you make it a UL, what you'll find is that you get some extra padding, which is the browser defaults. So there's a couple of ways you can deal with this. With the card grid selected, you can go to your style, go to your layout. Actually, I don't need to do that. This is an AT feature, all these shortcuts down here, which I'm slowly getting used to using. And you'll see on the padding, we've got a 40 down here. We can make that 0, and that fixes the problem. Okay, so we can do that, or we can add a utility class, which is list -- none. Now, this is a utility you also find in ACSS, so it's up to you whether you use list none. It removes all your margin, your padding, sets your list style to none. But when you use a block in bricks, all you need to do is remove the padding. So anyway, that's just a tip there. All right, so we've got a unordered list ready to go with our card grid, and we've got an item. So go back to our card grid, and on the content tab, we're going to change this. We're going to select the card grid, change that into a grid. I've got some auto gap on here, but I'm going to put an actual gap in of grid gap. Again, you'll find this in automatic CSS. This is not ACSS, so it's just a bit of a pseudo ACSS for now. So here's my grid gap and grid of 4. So now we've got a 4-column grid. Here's my item, ready to go. All right, so that's the first part done. Now we're going to start working on the card. Now, with a tip for you when I'm creating reusable components is do not use blocks, use divs. And the reason for that is that in bricks, there are some defaults that override blocks and containers and that sort of stuff. And what we want to do is we want to very weakly define our defaults. And if we define them weakly and bricks overrides them, then they don't work. So what I do is I start with a div so that bricks doesn't override my settings. So we're starting with a very vanilla div, which is actual div, and we're not going to have any problems like that. I'm just going to call that my card. And I'm going to create 1, 2, 3 divs under that and call that header, body, footer. And in our header, we want to have an icon, and we want to have, let's do a basic text. I'm going to call this my copy. No, that's my, we don't want a basic text, sorry, there. We want a heading. I'll call it title. And in the body, we want a basic text, which I'll copy. And in my footer, we're going to have a button. All these shortcuts that I'm clicking on the side here, AT, Advanced Schema. So how quick is that? They're right there. You don't have to go through your plus and find them. It's just right there. You just click on those and create your content really, really quickly. All right, so there's the structure of what I'm going to have in that card. So now all I do, right click on my card, go to my class converter, and here's all the BEM elements that it's going to create the classes, close that. And if we look at it now, we've got a card, we've got a header. So this is awesome, isn't it? Now, the other thing I tend to do is go to the block at the top here and put CSS in there. And that's just to indicate that's where we're going to stick all of our CSS. Now, one other thing is that when I'm creating reusable components, I tend to do everything in the custom CSS. And then when you want to override these, you have a choice of either custom CSS or using the settings UI, entirely up to you. But for the base component, I find it easier to do everything at the block level using CSS there. So now we've got our card selected. Go to our CSS. Again, there's an an AT shortcut. And the next AT feature I'm going to use is this little list button here. If I click on that, I get selectors for all of the BEM elements under where the current structure selected is selected. So that just automatically gets created for me, and that is just awesome. All right, so what I tend to do is start my styling up at these elements, and then I'll cut those out and I'll make them variables, which I'll talk about shortly. So we want to make our root, so I'm going to make the card. I'm going to make that a display flex. Remember we started with divs, so we don't have any settings on these. So I'm going to display, and that's a AT thing, that shortcut that just brought up the settings. So flex. We're going to go flex direction, column. And again, I'm not a super fast typer, so these little shortcuts to keep things simple, like these autocompletes, all that sort of stuff, is just a godsend for me. And we're going to set the width to 100%. I said it was warts and all, didn't I? Okay, width to 100%. So there's our base settings. We're then going to go to the header. We're going to put that as a display flex. And this time we're going to set our direction to row. Okay, flex direction, row. We want to center the icon and the heading together. So we're going to center that by using align items. Now, because we're in a row, we're going to align our items. Align items are center. Okay, see that now vertically align that icon there. We want a bit of a gap, so we want to do a column gap. I'm going to use a AT feature here, which is if we just start typing, first start typing space. Again, you'll find these in ACSS. This is not ACSS. Space, I want a space of, say, XS. Okay. And we've got a little bit of a space between these now. All right. So I think that's it. No, we want some padding, don't we? Padding, block. Let's make that X. Let's just make that S. Space S. So all these little things work, like this autocomplete here in AT is absolutely awesome. By the way, you've got to enable the superpower CSS for this to happen. So we go padding inline. Okay, so we've got padding block and padding inline. I'm going to copy those, and I'm going to stick those into my body and into my footer as well. So we've got the same padding everywhere. Okay, that's it there. All right, now what else are we going to do? Our icon, we want to set our color and our size of our icon. So I'm going to color. And again, we're going to use, in this case, we'll use maybe primary dark. Primary dark. Okay, beautiful. And we're going to set the font size. we might actually set this in the header. We're going to set the font size in the header, and then we can use M's up here. So I'm going to set the font size in the header of, I don't know, text L maybe. That'll do. And then in the font size here, let's make that 1M. Okay, and the title, we're going to make it font size 1M. So we're going to override our default heading setting for that. Whatever heading level we decide to make that, we're going to override that here for that title. And we make the color. Let's do primary dark on that as well. Okay, so that's a title. What else do we want in the header? Maybe we want to put a bit of a background on it. So let's make the background neutral, dark, trans 10, that'll do. Okay, so we've got a little bit of background. By the way, I've got a texture in my page background here just so I can see what my transparencies are doing. I think this looks pretty ugly. I wouldn't do that on a live site, but this is just so I can see what I'm doing and what kind of transparencies I have. Okay, so there's our heading. Actually, we might put some border, and so I'm going to do border radius of radius XS, make it XS, that'll do. We'll do a border of 1 pix solid, and maybe we'll use the same variable here. I'm not sure. Might make that a little bit lighter, so I might make it a transparency of say 20. We'll see. And because we got some color in there, we need to set our overflow to hidden if we want that border to work properly. Okay, there we go. So we're starting to get there, right? And in our body, we're just going to leave that as it is. In our footer, let's grab our background for our footer. Stick that there as well. So we got a background footer as well. All right. Now we are pretty much where we need to be. I do want to, on the footer, I want to turn that into a row as well, just in case. I'm going to, just in case we need to, if we're going to put other stuff in the footer. So I'm going to turn it into a flex row just by doing that. And by the way, I'm going to show you a little tip here. I'm just going to go to the front end with flex. If you're really not sure what your properties are, you can go into your Chrome DevTools and inspect. Pick an element that's got flex. Say, for example, if it's this header here, and you're not sure what you want to do with your flex, there's a little helper here. And you can click on those, click on these icons here, and that will give you what you need. So I clicked on this button here, and now I notice I've got a justify content center. So if I wanted to center that content there, I need to add justify content center. Okay. All right. So anyway, what happened here? How did my bricks builder disappear? Did I just bring up another site? I'm just going to reload that. I think I had another tab open. There we go. Back to where we were, thank God. All right. So on our card, what else do we want to do? Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty. No, let's put some alignment stuff in there. Actually, no, we'll leave that till later. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to just give me a couple of lines here. AT feature here, capital R tab, and I've got my root with my brackets and my focus and center there. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these here, copy those, put them into root, put 2 dashes in front of it. That makes it a variable. Okay, I'm going to grab our display here. Now, unfortunately, this is something AT hasn't done yet, is that doesn't auto-complete the variables that are in here. So hopefully Maxine will do that. We're just going to change these all to variables, and I'll explain as I get along. This takes a little bit more work, but it's worth it for usability. So to make them reusable so that you can put variations on these and overrides, and it just works really beautifully. And some of these you may not need, like this width here. What I do, water radius. I should just do width. Some of these you really don't need variables for, but I'm just going to show you the concept. You can decide which ones you're actually going to override. Like the width of 100%, it's always going to be 100%. You don't need a variable for that, right? Border. I'm not going to edit this video, so sorry guys, bear with me if you want to learn how this works. All right, so what did I mess up? There we go. So now we've converted our initial settings for the card. We've converted those all into variables here. Now, I would say some of the stuff in here we're never going to change. So I'm going to just grab, what do we want? We'll probably change font, spacing, column gap. Yeah, we probably will do all these. Flex direction, we may change that at a breakpoint, for example. I'm going to grab all of those. Go down here. Dash dash. I wonder if there's a way Maxime could create a shortcut to do this. So we could put a, like in here, that's our header. So I'm going to actually type this in. As an idea for you, Maxime, if you make a way to select all these and convert them into variables, that would be a massive time saver. Okay, oops. All right, so we have our header variable. So we're going to have our header vex flex direction. Oops. That's the problem with us touch typers. Sometimes you are not looking at what you're typing. I wish I did some typing lessons. Probably should do actually. Stop wishing and start doing. Again, you will. I've got two P's there up there. No, it's just a typo in there. That's in the wrong spot. So it should have been align items. Align items. Maxime, you got to do something to make this easy for me. All right. Okay, so what have I broken here? So if we go to these, have we got our, so with the editor here, if you get anything wrong, then it will not work. Right, so this is the border. There we go. What am I missing? Display flex direction, header align items. There we go. Flex direction. I'm just going to hit save on that and have a look at the front. Sometimes the bricks editor doesn't render properly. Let's see why that's not a row. So the header. Okay, so if I deleted the flex, here we go. So I messed that up. Display flex. Oh, sorry, too early in the day. Display flex. Now it works there. So what have I messed up here? Display flex. Display flex. Sorry, trying to talk and do this at the same time. Column gap, header column gap. Where's my header column gap? Gotta love demos. This all was working beautifully until I decided to show you how to do it. So let's have a look here. Where is my header? Column gap is header column gap. So that's I've got an extra line in there. Okay. Column gap. Header column gap. I've got an extra dash there. There we go. Fixed. Hopefully the next one will go quicker. So let's do, we don't have much more to do actually. So because our icon is pretty simple. And I can type icon without messing it up. Yes, I can. Icon size, title. Is it just title? It is. Right, look at this and going, Jesus, takes a long time. That's just me. I'm slow at this. But once it's done, you will see how powerful this is. Okay, so we've got our body and our footer. So not much to do now. So bear with me, guys. This is our body, I think what he said it was. So another little trick with all this to a little bit later, where we got our paddings and whatnot. Actually, I'll show it very shortly. That's our body and our footer. Okay. So footer flex direction, footer background. Sorry, this last time I should leave it display fixed. So that's where I messed up with that top one there. I overwrote the wrong starting property. Okay. What do we have here? Padding block. And you'll come up with your own variable sets based on how you want to assign whatever element you're doing this for. So there we go there. So we're back to the same style, but we've converted all of these into variables. Now, what I also will do here is, because a lot of the spacing here around the top and bottom, left and right, etc., is using the same spacing. So what I typically do, and this is, by the way, this is locally scoped. So this root is referring to the card. So this is locally scoped, so these variables you put here are not available anywhere else except for under this class. So if I type a global, I'm meaning global to this contact, so to this card in this sense. So I'm going to go global space, maybe we'll call it global padding block. Just so you can separate them out if you want to. Here's space S, and we'll do a global padding. Show you where this is really awesome too. Inline. Then all of these ones down here where I had the space S for my paddings, I'm going to put that variable in there. That was the header. Where's my body there? Okay, so now we can change one variable up the top here as a global, and we can set all of these at the same time if we want to, or we just override those individually. Right, so that's the bulk of it done. Now, the next thing I typically do is I will change the specificity of all of these rules here, because we want this to be a global. We want to be able to override it with other CSS rules or the settings UI, and we don't want this to interfere with this. We want it to be this our baseline. It makes it super reusable. So the way you do that, and we will have some problems which we'll have to discover, you use the colon where, and you put this all inside brackets like that. Didn't break? Great. We're not getting any default overrides anywhere that's going to cause that problem. So try that on this one as well. So just wrap your current rule in a where. I'll explain what that does very shortly. See, when we wrapped it in the where, our icon font size is wrong now. And I'm going to show you why that is when we look in the front end. Okay. Yeah. No, I haven't got anything in there. I'll just get it ready. Okay, I'm going to show you the problem. Actually, so our heading and our icon are the wrong sizes now. I'm going to show you what's going on with that and why this where has stopped that from working for those, but it works for everything else. Hit the save. Let's refresh that. Let's have a look at our icon, and you'll see our icon here, bricks icon. So by default, the front-end min CSS for bricks has a class of bricks icon which sets your font size to 60 pixels. Our rule down here, which has got the where, what where does is it says that anything that's inside these brackets does not add to the CSS specificity rules, which means even though that's only got one class in the rule path, that's going to override this because this doesn't have enough specificity. And it's a really good way to set defaults, but what it does do is it creates a problem with overriding. So what we have to do is identify any of these where our rule's been overridden, and we need to strengthen those rules in bricks. So if we come back here, so it was our icon size, and we could leave the color if we want to, because that's not being overridden. So you can do this a couple of different ways. You can just take that where off. They've only got two properties, or you can duplicate that rule there, take the where off there, and take the color out of there, and take the font size out of here. Okay, now it works, right? Because all we're doing is saying we want that to be really weak so you can easily override it, but we can't have that really weak because the defaults are going to override it. So weak, not weak, all right? Well, not as weak. So that's how I would deal with it. We then have the same problem with the heading, where this H3, we looked in our rules where the font size here is being defined. Actually, in my my framework, I'm defining that, which you can enable or disable. But even if you define that in the bricks theme, or if you define it, if you're using automatic CSS and you define that size in a CSS, that is going to override this rule here for the font size, because this has no specificity and that has one element of specificity. So we're going to do the same thing with that. So with our title, we're going to duplicate that, take the where off, and we also have a problem where with our, should be color, no R, there we go. So just fix that. So it's my copy paste. All right, so we're done. I have a completely reusable card that I can set to whatever I like, and I'm going to show you how that works now. So the hard part's done. The rest of it is super, super easy. Now, let's say, actually, just make that an actual action button. So button action. There we go. Got an action button going on there. All right, now, let's say we're going to create a row of 4 of these. So I'm going to grab my items here, add 3 of those. See where we're going here? That could easily be a single element with a query loop looping through custom post, whatever you want. And then the rest of it remains the same. So it's just it's query loop ready. All right, now, what we're going to do is go to our card grid. And actually, yes, so we're going to go to our card again, into our CSS rules. I'm just going to copy all of these variables. I'm just going to copy those to the clipboard. We're not going to use all these in this case, but I'm just going to copy them. Control C in my case to copy all to the clipboard. Go to our card grid, so not the card grid. Into our CSS. Here's another AT feature. I'll show you where to find it. So once you know these things, you can just type it very quickly. But I want to do a nth child of even. So you do R, C, in the argument. So it's just, I'm going to do this is actually something Maxine needs to fix, but if I do a capital R, C, E, V, E, N, tab, I get my root nth child even. Now with a capital R, I'm supposed to get this happen automatically, but that's just a small bug that Maxine needs to fix. So R, or capital R, C, even, and tab, and then I've got that. Just another little shortcut. All right, so on every even nth child, so these items here, sorry, I did the wrong thing. So you got to R, and then it's the item. So root __ item. So we want to target the item elements under the card grid, and every even child, so every second one, we're going to target that. Then we're going to target our card. So the card element inside there, and we're going to set these variables. Now, all the stuff here we don't want to change, border radius. Okay, let's get rid of those variables there. We don't want to change that. We don't want any of these, gaps, padding, font size. We want to change the background. So we're just getting rid of all the variables we're not going to change. Icon color, we might change. Title color, we might change. And we're not going to change any of this. Why haven't we got our footer background in there? Did I not copy enough? Let's go back to the card. It's interesting. I didn't copy the footer background. Okay, back to my card grid. Okay. So at the moment you can't see anything because it's the same variables, right? So what if I change that to be primary? I'm going to make this extreme. I'm going to primary. Oh, by the way, this autocomplete, if you're already inside of var, it doesn't work properly. It puts another var inside. So I'm going to get rid of that, sorry. Just do primary. So I want my border to be 1 pixel solid primary. Make it 2 pixels so it really stands out. 2 pixels, so you can see every second one. It's a bit hard to see in the editor here until we go live. Head the background, let's make that primary dark. Actually, let's just make it primary so we can really see it standing out. Okay, so every second one's got a primary header now. Icon color, let's go primary light. Maybe ultralight. So it's almost white. And with the title, change that to, I don't know, black. So a black title, primary there. For the background, let's go primary dark. Let's go there. Primary dark. Okay, so you can see here, all we've done is overridden 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables on our selector here, and we've got our new style. Every second one we add is going to do the same thing. So if I went to here and I started adding another line, every second one will have that style applied because we're using an nth-child selector up here and changing 2 variables, 4 variables, 5 variables. Get it right. All right, so that's the first thing that is really, really cool about doing it this way. You're only overriding a few variables to make this work. Okay, so I'm actually going to add another section now, and I'm going to show you another cool thing about this. I'm just going to grab I might just create a dummy grid here. So I don't want that. Actually, we're just going to create a grid in there. Gap. This won't form part of a design, just to show you what we can do. A grid of 4. Okay, now we're going to grab one of my cards, copy the card, stick it into there. So there's our first card. It's going to duplicate that a few times. 4 of those. We're going to create some modifiers on these. This is where the next part is really, really cool. So on this card here, I'm just going to copy that name. And paste it in there and do a -- secondary. So this is what they call a modifier in BEM. So the 2 dashes is a secondary. Is a modifier in BEM. So we're going to go back to our card, go to our CSS, grab all of our rules, copy those, go to our modifier, and do a capital R tab. And every time I mention the capital R tab, that's an AT feature. So what do we want? We want to override our border, background, maybe the icon color and font size we don't want to do, title color we want, padding we don't want, direction, footer background we do. Okay. Just a little bit of a tidy up, stickler for tidiness and this sort of stuff. Okay, so we've called this secondary, haven't we? So what we're going to do is change this to secondary. Copy that, paste, oops, paste. Okay, now we have a modifier for secondary. Okay, these probably aren't so easy to see. So let's go back to that. The secondary, probably because we're using too much transparency. I'm going to take some of the transparency off. So maybe we will make that 60. This one will make the background maybe 30. So it's a little bit more. and the bottom one will make, say, 80. All right. Okay, so there's a modifier for our secondary. So any of these items up here, for example, if I go to that first one, this card here, and I add my secondary now, my card secondary, I've just changed the style of that card because I've added a modifier to it. All right, so you can see it's super flexible, and it's one card, one design of a card, and we got all these options for it. Now, one thing I didn't do before was alignment. So let's have a look at these cards for alignment. So I'm going to come back to this first card. And again, because it's CSS, it doesn't matter which card we select. So on the second card, actually, I'm going to select that because that's what I'm going to modify. I'm going to add some more properties here, which will be global. Again, it's global only to the scope of this card. Global, justify. We're going to set that default to flex start. And global text align. Of left. Okay, so what we're going to use these for is in our header. There's our header. We'll put it up the top here. So we're going to go justify content. Okay, text align. Copy these just to make sure there's no typos in them. Okay, so we've got those in our header. Where's our body? We're going to put them in the body as well. Is our body set to flex? I don't know if we did set the body to flex. Let's set the body to flex as well. And it's always going to be flex direction. Column. Okay. So that's it there. Now, what else do we need? The justify content text align into the footer as well. So just adding some alignment properties. All right. Now, how I'm going to use this, I'm going to go to my second card. So on that card there, I'm going to copy my name. I'm then going to paste that and do a center. Okay, so I'm going to do a center modifier. On that center modifier, I'm just going to grab the variables. All I need for this one are these two here. Go to my card center, capital R tab, paste those in there, and we go end and right. All right, see this here? We just added a modifier, and now we've got right aligned content. I'm going to copy another one, so we're going to go to the third card. We're going to make this one a card right. Okay. And we'll go back to this one now. I'm just going to grab those, variables from there. It's from our modifier here. It's our modifier, just grab that, go to this one here. It's our card right. And we're going to make that, what do we make this one? Flex Hold on, what have we got here? On the wrong one. Trying to add the center on. Card right. Getting myself confused, sorry guys. Card center. That should be card right, sorry. Messed this up. Sorry guys. So card center should be center. Sorry guys, I had a rubbish truck outside my house. We can make that center. And then on the card right, we're going to make that, I've already done it. So we got the flex end. So here we go. So we've got a modifier for secondary, modifier for center content, modifier for right content. And the last one I'm going to do is going to be card compact. So heading back to my last card, grab that. And I'm going to put this one as card dash dash compact. Okay, card compact. Now, what do you think we're going to need for this? Let's go back to our card. Go to our settings up here. And this is why I made the global padding block, global padding inline. So we can grab those, come to our card compact, capital R, tab, paste it in there, and we'll make this XS. XS. All right, so now we've got a compact card. All right, so now we've got a compact card, and we'll see that because of the spacing on this, this is actually stretched there. So we probably want to go to our cards themselves. I wouldn't do, you can probably do this as a utility. Let's have a look at it. So what I need to do is I need to set my actual card height there. So the actual card height. We can do it on the footer. So let's go to the footer and go to the card. Maybe what we'll do is do this as default. What we're going to do is push the footer to the bottom. So we can do this as a default, or we can create another variable. So let's do another variable. Let's make that. So if we went align top, was it margin top? Margin top auto. That's pushed our footer to the bottom on the that card there. We may not always want that, so let's change that. So we'll change that to our footer, add another variable to the footer, call that footer margin top of auto, and then down here take that variable and we'll put that there. All right, now it's something that we can target with a modifier. So if we don't want our footer to be pushed to the bottom, we can change that. So let's just save that and have a look at our page now. All right, so there we go. So we've got alternating colors using a BEM modifier with an nth-child. We've got an override of secondary with a BEM modifier. We've got a BEM modifier here for the override secondary. We've got center align, right align, and now we've got a compact version here, and we're pushing our footer to the bottom. So you can see there's a difference in that. Now you can combine these. So I can go to, say for example, if I go to my modifier here, my card here that's got the secondary modifier, I can also put compact on that. So now on the front end, I've got a card here that's got both my secondary modifier and the compact modifier, so it's all set there. Let's add the right line to it. Card right. And now we've got a right align, compact, secondary card. this is just really makes sense to me now. I'm understanding more about how bricks works and how BEM is used. This just makes so much sense to build in this way. It took a little bit more effort to change all of these settings that you put on the card. For example, here, all these default rules, changing those into variables, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it for scalability, usability. I don't have to remember how did I create those rules, what am I going to override. I just override a couple of variables. That's, for me, that's absolute gold. Now, what I'm also going to show you is another AT feature. The next one, and this is the last thing I'm going to show you, is if we go to our class manager. Let's say we've created this and we've called this card, but we've decided we don't want it just to be a card. This is a specific type of card. So maybe this is a service card, right? So we go to our class manager, we go bulk actions. We're going to rename a class that contain the following string. We go card. Here's all of our card icon, all our card elements there. So just make sure you're not picking up anything that has because it's a simple name, has the same name. What we're going to do is we can exclude things here if there is anything in there. So if there's you've got a button, card button or something like that, you can exclude it by name there. We want to create that, we want to replace the word card. So we're filtering by card. We want to replace the word card with a service card. All right. Now this one does get a little bit tricky because if I hit save here, that doesn't work, right? And you can't see this, but you have to scroll down to the bottom here and you can see this rename class button. I was hitting the save post and going, why didn't these work? Until I realized, you scroll down, there's a button to rename them first. So hit the rename classes, and now they're all renamed. Hit the save post. My editor will be messed up because it doesn't have the classes there anymore. Hit the refresh button. And all of these are now renamed to service card, header, etc. But you'll notice one thing here. All of the modifiers are working in the original classes, but we've lost our alternation. And the reason for that is because with our card grid, what we did was we targeted the root, which is this service card grid now, but then we manually put this name in here. So we're going to have to change that one thing to service card, and then we're back on track. So I think that's an unbelievably good feature because you quite often start doing things and you think, oh geez, I wish I did that differently, but you're way down the track. Having that ability to be able to go and then say bulk actions, rename all these to whatever, add a prefix, whatever you want to do, is a really, really cool AT feature. So just working through this, you can see that I'm using a lot of shortcuts with AT, using these shortcuts down the side to get to these panels that I need to, etc. Using the shortcuts down the right hand side to quickly insert things in here, using the superpower CSS here so that I can get auto completion and all these really cool shortcuts here where super time savers as you get used to them. And it's really, really awesome. Now, one thing I haven't done is showed you, which I showed in the previous video, but you've got all this done. Okay, let's double click on our structure panel so that it's floating. And then we're going to go to our tablet breakpoint, go to our mobile breakpoint. Yeah, that's a bit too much. That's actually still working. So we go to this point here and we've got too much, right? So with AT, you can click on these icons here and it gives you the first breakpoint. Click on the next one, it gives you the next breakpoint down. Okay, so that's a really cool little feature. Now this, I'm not going to go through this because this is standard stuff here in bricks. This is standard stuff for your breakpoints. But what I'm going to show you, what I will show you, is that if we go to this card grid here, now because we got a service card grid, I'm just going back to the desktop breakpoint. Got a service card grid here. Ooh, I actually didn't do this one on variables. Okay. Okay, what can I show you? Actually, we're just going to go. So I'll go to here. We can just change that to a grid 2. I'll go 2-column grid from that breakpoint down. Okay, so and get down to here, and we might change that to grid 1. Yeah. So this is standard brick stuff. This isn't anything special, but what you can do with these, let's say for example, you want this card here, you want it to go to a different color at a different breakpoint. I know that's a crazy example. I can't think of a good one at the moment. So what you might do is grab that card, either at the ID level. Actually, let's say we want all the cards to change at a certain breakpoint. That'd be easier. Let's grab the styles here, and let's say we just want the heading color. Oh, I'm just going to pick one. So I'm going to header background. Where are we? Header. We'll make this really obvious. So header background. And what I'm going to do is on my service card. So we'll do, maybe we want all service cards to be affected by this. When we get to this breakpoint here, we want tab. We want just that there to go to. We'll just make it orange, red. Okay. So at this breakpoint here, we override one variable and our heading is red. Let's go back to the other breakpoint and grab the color. So the header font size, header flex direction, header, title. Where's my title? Here's my title color. So I'm going to grab that. Go back to our breakpoint here. Is that one? On there, it's not showing it. I'm going to hit this save and refresh. So sometimes things don't always show up in bricks, and you just hit the refresh button and away you go. Let's go back to our card. Sorry, the card. I'll get there in the end. We'll go to our breakpoint here, and we'll see our CSS is there again now. So I'm just going to paste in that color. We'll call that, we'll make it white. Okay, so you can see here, we don't have to look at how all the CSS works. We can override variables at the breakpoints. We can override variables at modifiers. We can override variables using nth-child selectors and get whatever we want these items to do. So it's super reusable. And I like this way of doing it. This is why I'm going to create all of the elements that I intend to use ongoing or in multiple places. I hope that is some good insight. I hope that it's something that you can learn from and enjoy. And if you disagree with anything, I'm always open to learning. So please let me know if there's things that you think I've missed or should be doing differently. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, enjoy and thanks for listening.